Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the International Down Low, where we share the colorful histories of teams and players attending TI5 to educate the newbies and to pump up the oldies in the world of Dota 2. This episode we tackle the eternal underdogs, Team North American Rejects, Navi US, North American Reborn, North American Rejects 2.0, Team Archon. Fuck it. Ask any pirate if he has a favorite Dota 2 team, and his answer will almost always be NAR! But today's story is not about pirates, it's more about cowboys. Specifically, the hard-ass old-timey outlaws of the unforgiving North American Dota scene. North American Dota eats players up and spits them out, and they can even turn the most sane men into raving lunatics by the time it is done with them. If you can make it in NA Dota, you can make it anywhere, and most do not make it. Most leave so salty that they can't stand the world around them. Spend most of their time playing at 5K pubs, which is 4K in Europe, and on Twitter. But some of the toughest, roughest, and most experienced pioneers of the American wasteland do make it out alive, and others seem to thrive. This is the story of the North American Rejects. After Dota 1's competitive scene began to fade, the pioneers of the MOBA genre began to look elsewhere for the new competitive fix. One of the most thriving communities in the twilight years of Dota was Han, a standalone game formed after the Warcraft 3 mod that we call Dota, and where many of the Dota veterans began to set up shop. Two of the most well-known players, Fogged and Korok, veterans of the Dota scene, went on to dominate Han in its prime. Not everything lasts forever, and soon Han began to fade just as Dota did before it. With a new Dota 2 announced, the old dogs moved back into the War of the Ancients and began to dominate their old scene once again. Fogged and Korok were akin to grizzled mercenaries and competitive MOBAs. Both had more experience than most could touch, and both were hired to kick ass for a variety of assorted teams, including, but not limited to, Quanta Gaming, Team Liquid, Team Technicos, Bottom, Evil Geniuses, and Team Dog, among others. The pair traveled the world as wandering rivals, constantly clashing under different flags and against different teams. Yet the result was always the same. Use the old men and then kick them when they were used up after large tournaments and repeat the process. Eventually, the wandering masters decided that enough was enough, and it was time to change the game from the inside. And so, rather than hide from their past rejections in the NA Dota scene, the pair decided to embrace their outlawed status and wear it proud, forming the North American Rejects. Gathering like-minded souls, these outcasts decided to burn down the teams that had left them to rot, systematically decimating anybody that had wronged them in the past after forming in April of 2014. Their reign of justice caught the attention of the Dota 2 scene at large, and a mere 2 months after forming, they were approached by the world-renowned European organization known as Team Navi to become something else entirely, the North American Navi Squad. The recognition and fame that they had always sought had finally come, and TI4 loomed on the horizon. After securing victory against Team Liquid in the TI4 qualifiers, NAR charged headfirst into the largest gaming tournament in history. But something was wrong. They got shit on! NAR lost hard, and 6 months later they were disbanded from the Navi name. Soon, the seasoned vets were nomads once again. For 3 months, they wandered. For 3 months, they stowed in their own rage. But then, they realized something. What made their team work was not the recognition of a major corporation, and it was not a TI victory. It was revenge. It was anger. And they needed to dominate and obliterate any who stood in their way again. On March 24, NAR rose up again from the depths of competitive North American Dota 2 and became NAR Reborn, later named NAR 2.0. Gathering all that they could, NAR called upon the likes of Chad, Ush, and MSS to form their new team of Renegades. Now a new TI looms on the horizon. The boys are ready, and this time, there will be no corporate sponsorship. This time, there will be no mercy. This time, there will be blood. Unless, of course, they get picked up by a very generous and professional sponsor, in case I'm sure they're going to perform very well and be very well-mannered and hard-working. Anyhow, let's talk about the players. The squad is managed by one Greg Liard, commonly known as Gerg, who, you know, I don't really know what he does. Perhaps keep them angry all the time with his constant whining. Ush is relatively new in the Dota 2 scene, but is quickly rising to become a respectable and feared member of the competitive world, averaging the 5th highest GPM among pro players since 2014. Known for his mid-carry heroes, Ush prefers hard-hitting Shadow Fiend and is built like a goddamn tank! Look at this kid, he looks like a friggin' bristleback. Also, his original name in Dota 1 was Kush, back when he was 14 years old.
Smoke weed every day.
True fact. Ush isn't the only new blood on the scene, as NAR also has MSS, their resident offlaner. Classically trained as a mid, MSS is versatile, calculating, and the one guy in Dota 2 who still plays Elder fucking Titan. Seriously, he has a perfect 6-0 competitive wins with that hero. What? Resourceful, quick thinking, and literally beat the shit out of me in a pub one time. MSS is a force to be reckoned. He plays Elder Titan, for God. Who does that? Chad doubles as North American Reject support and team captain. He is also Canadian. Fogged is the wild card of Team NAR and commonly plays support, being one of the most well-known faces in NA Dota. One of the founding members of NAR and an expert in Dota, HOD, and Dota 2, there's little that this grizzled vet hasn't already seen before. He has been in countless tournaments, has played with countless teams, and will stop at nothing to secure his spot at the international history books. He also has severe difficulty wearing headphones on multiple occasions. Last but certainly not least, Korok is a name synonymous with North American Dota, being one of the few who broke out from the US into the international scene in 2010. One of the original founders of NA Dota, along with Fear, Demon, and Merlini, he is one of the most valued players in the 2012 Team Liquid roster. Korok has been to 2 internationals already and yearns to bring his space-creating mid skills back to the key arena. With an overall mid win rate of over 65%, even the most seasoned mids from around the world know to fear the lane of the Korok. Along with Fogged, he was one of the founding members of the North American Rejects and hopes to finally gain the TI win that he has longed for since he broke out into Dota almost 12 years ago. But will the mix of new blood and old skill be enough to rise from the salted lands of NA Dota and finally claim the Covenant Aegis and the American Dream? There's also a Canadian in there. Americans love an underdog, and no one is more ready for their time to shine than the North American Rejects themselves. See you in person at TI5, and I'll see you online next time for another episode of TI5 Download.